Hello, everyone. Namaste. My name is Ashley Turner, and I am so excited to be here today with my very dear friend and soul brother, Tommy Rosen. Thank you so much for joining us, Tommy.
Thanks, Ashley. Great to be here with you.
Tommy is literally one of my dearest friends, and we collaborate on several projects. He's a yoga teacher. He's the founder of Recovery 2.0, the conference series, and the author of the new book, Recovery 2.0, Move Beyond Addiction and Upgrade Your Life, which hits shelves today, October 21st. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. It's been so fun to watch you personally on this journey and, through the editing process. And I am so, so happy for you personally as this new birthing and this entire movement that you've really started and founded, but also because obviously this work is so profound, it's so important, and I can't wait to dive in and really, offer people some serious solutions for addiction and recovery and the full spectrum of what that is. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about, this name and this whole movement, Recovery 2.0, what it is, what does Recovery 2.0 mean, and how it started.
Okay. Recovery 2.0 really is a global movement consisting today really of about 100 to 150,000 people around the world who believe that, number one, addiction is a disease. Number two, there's a treatment for that disease, and that there's a way to actually get beyond the energy of addiction altogether and to thrive in recovery. That's like sort of the main thing, is how do we actually thrive in recovery? And we believe that a holistic approach to addiction is very important. Mm-hmm. So I call it the kitchen sink method of recovery, where we need to engage ourselves in holistic lifestyle practices, meaning we look at our relationship to our body, relationship to our breath, relationship to food, relationship to money, and looking really, digging down into what is our mission and our purpose, our reason for being here, and how can we be of service to other people. Mm-hmm. So those elements, along with the path of the 12 steps, which I advocate for, which was very powerful in my life, those things taken together with the 12 steps make the 12 steps much more powerful and really create a long-term sustainable approach to recovery.
Mm-hmm. And let's talk a little bit about so as a psychotherapist and as a yoga teacher, I have a lot of clients. I have a lot of, students or friends coming to me that have maybe they're struggling with addiction. It's one of the first things that I assess for when I'm sitting with a client in particular is, are you drinking alcohol? If so, how much? Are you smoking pot? How much? What's your relationship to food? To just look at the addictive patterns and the addictive tendencies. And what do you recommend for people that sort of maybe feel like they're on the borderline? I've had a lot of people say, well, I don't really think I'm an alcoholic. I mean, I drink, I definitely have a couple glasses of wine, most nights, but I don't really think I'm an alcoholic. What do you recommend to someone like that to help assess? And then also, just some basic next steps to, come into balance.
Great. So really important question here, because it's certainly not my place to tell somebody else that they're an alcoholic or a drug addict, or I can only reflect back what I'm seeing. In your case, being in a therapeutic environment, you're not with the person, like a family member or a spouse might be. You're taking information they give to you in that moment, and you're being able to mirror back to them what's going on. I don't think pushing 12 steps or recovery on anybody is a good idea. What I do think is a good idea is to help a person reflect on the gains, the short-term gains, and perhaps the long-term losses of their behavior. So anybody, whether you're an addict and you struggle with alcoholism, drug addiction, food addiction, sex addiction, relationship issues, whatever it is, you live by this thing called short-term gain, long-term loss. That's for addicts, but even if you're not an addict, a lot of these behaviors that you might be engaging in, like drinking or smoking pot, yeah, your life is not going to implode, but there's still a price to pay. So I really would ask a person, ask yourself, what are you gaining from drinking, from smoking pot? What are the short-term gains? And some people would say, well, I'm able to enjoy myself more easily. I feel more at ease with myself. I'm better in social situations.
Takes the edge off. That's what I hear a lot. Like I get home at night, my work is stressful, my kids are stressful. Like it just helps me like unwind.
Exactly. So those are legitimate, by the way, those are legitimate short-term gains to those behaviors. And then one would want to look at, well, what prices do you have to pay for those gains? So the next morning, for example, with drinking, we know that alcohol is, first of all, it's a depressant by nature. It's an intoxicant, so the body doesn't appreciate it. It's kind of treated like an intruder, so the body has to work to detox itself when we've drank even a little bit. So that puts a tax on the liver, a tax on the kidney, a tax on the whole system. And so that's a price that we pay in little amounts over time. If you drink a lot, that can obviously lead to serious health conditions. That's another situation. But these losses, like, you know, you might have a splitting headache the next day, feeling that sense of being hungover, low energy, dry mouth. Your body has to expend energy to get you back to sort of what your normal baseline approach to the world energetically might be. Mm-hmm. So that's a price you have to pay. Another price you have to pay is unfortunately sometimes alcoholic or not alcoholic. You might get behind the wheel of a car and hurt somebody, or kill somebody, or hurt yourself, or kill yourself. And we all know countless examples of this is taking place. So that's a real sad thing about alcohol in particular. Another tough thing is alcohol is related to 40% of violent crimes in the United States.
Wow, so I didn't know that.
40% of violent crimes had alcohol involved in them in some way. And so that's a frightening enough statistic.
Sobering statistic.
That's a sobering statistic. And so we want to make sure, you know, how are we behaving? Mm-hmm. If okay, let's say you want to drink, and I'm certainly not a hater, and I'm not a judge. If someone wants to drink and they're drinking, well, you want to have some self-reflection about that. Mm-hmm. So all of this basically brings us to this mathematical equation. I'm receiving X, and I have to give up Y mm-hmm. to continue in this behavior. Mm-hmm. If you're paying bigger prices than the short-term gains that you're getting, that is not going to be a sustainable approach to your life.
Right.
And at some point, you're going to have bigger and bigger problems as a result of that, even if you're not an alcoholic or mm-hmm. addict.
I think one thing, I was listening actually to Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People the other day, like just on the treadmill, listening to one of his CDs. And he was talking about, your emotional bank account and how in relationship, whether it's a business or personal relationship, we are hopefully making deposits in that emotional bank account. And I think what happens a lot in addiction is that, if you really look subtly at if you have kids or your partner, how is that affecting your emotional relationship with those people? Because maybe your kids don't have the words to say if they're really young, are you drinking? They may not even consciously understand or know about that, but they can tell if you're not emotionally attuned. They can tell if you're, checked out or on a different frequency. And I know even being in relationship with someone, if one person's drinking or high and the other person's not, it's like you're not on the same page, and then there's tension, and then that, often, what I see a lot as a therapist is when I start to break down what's happening in a relationship, so many of the conflicts, you were talking about violent crimes, but even, just so many of the, blow-ups or fights in relationships stem from one person or both people drinking. And I've often had clients say, well, yeah, we had this huge blow-up, we both had been drinking, and so, okay, that's not actually helping your relationship. And, right. Let's take a look at that, Yeah,
there's so many costs, and it's very subtle. Is there a place for people to drink in the world in a healthy way? And probably, but still, you'd have to understand, I'm getting something by engaging in this behavior, but I'm also giving something up.
Right.
So it's a personal, it's a personal thing. Once you get into the realm of addiction, which is really what my book is all about, now there's a whole nother questioning process altogether. Mm-hmm. Now you're in the place where you actually don't want to drink at times, right. but can't help yourself.
Yeah, that was that. I would say I want to just highlight this. Like, how do people discern if they really have an issue with addiction, if it's really become something that's somewhat uncontrollable? And I had a therapist once say to me, we were looking at my drinking, and it's never been out of control, but there's times when maybe I've been depressed or anxious and drank a few more glasses of wine. And she said, a really good tool is just commit to not drinking and see how that goes. Say
Exactly.
For a week or 2 weeks or a month or 3 months, you're just not going to drink, and notice what is your relationship to that. Is it easy for you to let go and just move on, or is it a struggle and you say you're going to, but then you go and you're not going to drink, and then you do have a drink?
That's right. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to mention. That if you don't know if you have a problem, but you're concerned about yourself, just go off of it for 30 days.
Right.
And see what happens.
Yeah.
Be a witness of your experience over those 30 days. You're going to get a lot of information.
Yes,
anyway.
exactly.
Yes.
So next question, how do people either internally, personally, or if someone out there listening is dealing with a loved one, a friend, a partner, a parent, a child, someone that they see might have a problem, how do they go about, helping that person, or maybe just holding space? I don't know. What's your advice?
Well, I've broken the book down into 4 parts. The first part really deals with looking at the roots of addiction. So this is family history, environmental history, and your food choice history. The second part of the book is a deep dive into the 12 steps from a yoga teacher's perspective. Mm-hmm. So this is a new, updated look at the 12 steps, best practices for navigating them, ways to avoid some of the pitfalls. The third part of the book has to do with building the life of your dreams. How once you're onto a spiritual path and you really actually want to be there, then you get to experience all the joys, but also the challenges of life. What now? Okay, so everyone's going to come to that place. What now? And then the fourth part of the book answers that. It gives you the Recovery 2.0 upgrade, which is sort of really looking at a holistic perspective on your whole life, like what we're talking about now. So those are the 4 parts of the book, specifically for people who are either working in the field of addiction or who have a loved one that struggles with addiction. There's a lot of best practices. We go through a lot of that in the book. But what I would say for right here and now is, one of those best practices is never to judge or condemn, to understand that if a person is stuck in addiction, that they have a dis-ease, that they are lacking ease in the mind and body, and that they need to be led out of it very carefully. It's a very volatile situation. When people are at their absolute worst, they may need to be put into an institution for 28, 30 days for primary treatment, or at least outpatient, or a combination thereof. Therapeutics really help a lot. And of course, there are many, many millions of people in the world who have gotten sober just by walking off the street into a 12-step meeting. So those are the options today. But in terms of how can you deal with somebody who is unwilling to get help, but you see that they're hurting or killing themselves with an addictive behavior, is one of the great challenges of our lifetime, of our society right now. So it's rough, and I know you come upon this in your work all the time, Ashley.
Yeah.
So again,
I think that's where having a spiritual relationship is, having a spiritual connection of being able to plug into something else for support, for understanding, for compassion, for forgiveness. I mean, it is so challenging.
Yes. For that person who's trying to help another person, sometimes, and this is the hardest thing to do, but sometimes the absolute best thing to do is to be in loving detachment from this person, to set healthy boundaries, and to set an example in your own life. So there's a lot of parents, for example, who may have found out that their kid's drinking or smoking, and that's a great concern to them, and I understand that. So they're wondering, how can they be supportive to their child? And many of them are drinking in the home. And while they're trying to be supportive to their child, not drinking and not using drugs, they're drinking. So there's a disconnect there. And so one of the things is I would say, live with integrity,
Right.
if you're asking your child or a loved one who has a problem with drinking not to drink, then just at least to be in solidarity with them.
Mm-hmm.
You don't drink also. You don't use drugs also. And you will be much greater support to them and a much more powerful example to them.
That is such great advice.
So you see that. And you know, my heart goes out to anybody. We can't control another human being.
Mm-hmm.
So I often tell people, if you catch yourself expending your energy trying to control another person's behavior, and it's not going well in your own life because of that energy expenditure, then you may need to pull back the reins and take a look at your own relationship to self. You may need to do some work around codependency, and there's Al-Anon meetings and Codependence Anonymous for that. Lots of literature to read, a lot of support out there, because the more we try to control an addict, a person who's struggling, the less they want to be around you. Therefore, the less effect you could have upon them in a positive sense.
So great. And the other resource that I really want to just point out to people is this fantastic, you know, huge online community, intherooms.com, which you have a weekly show on, and I've been on with you. And it's such a great resource, because I have a lot of people come to me, clients come to me, and this is the last question I sort of want to ask about the shame piece of addiction. And a lot of clients will come to me and say, well, I live in a small town. I don't want to go to an AA meeting. I don't want everybody to know that I'm struggling with addiction, or maybe it's an eating disorder. I don't want to go to that and have everyone know that I'm a bulimic. And so I think In the Rooms is a really good resource, for anyone and everyone. It's right there. It's at your fingertips. It's online.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about what In the Rooms is.
Yeah, incredible organization. Basically, it's like a very vibrant social network for people in recovery from any and all addictions, and also for families and for people who work in the field. And I think their community is a little over 300,000 strong right now, so pretty solid and growing community. And I think now they have over 100, maybe 150 meetings, and these are virtual, online, live video meetings that take place each week, and I run one of those on Tuesday nights. It's not really a 12-step meeting per se. It's more of it's kind of one part 12-step meeting, one part interview show, one part Q&A. We get into a discussion about Recovery 2.0 type topics each week. And, you know, we have 150 to 200 people sign on each week from all over the world.
All over the world.
It's just amazing.
And because I've also worked with people, I know people watching in Europe or in Asia where the 12 steps are not as prevalent, and they need support, they need resources, and this is a great resource. And the other piece of that is what you mentioned, that there's so many different types of addictions, and I think it's really important, you know, because people can so easily feel alone and isolated and ashamed of, you know, addictions with pornography, addictions with, you know, eating disorders, shopping, gambling, you know, food is huge, sugar is huge. Like these things that may be a little bit more under the radar, but are just as damaging and detrimental, and that there are support groups for almost, you know, for all kinds of specific addictions and different kinds of groups.
That's right. That's right. And so you've got this sort of mix of people. Some of them actually literally can't get out of their house because they're infirmed. Or I know in a few cases, people who have degenerative illnesses, some people who maybe just have like a brutal flu and they can't get out of the house, but they need a meeting that night. Yeah. It's there. And so intherooms.com, check it out. Please, you know, join the community. It's free. And it's just an extraordinary thing. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, thank you so much. So what is your last sort of like tips or anything you want to offer people for the Recovery 2.0, for this movement? And just, I'd love to hear your last inspiring words.
Sure. Well, the book has hit the shelves today. It's October 21st. I am in New York City, and I'll be giving a book signing tonight. I'm not actually sure where that is because we're pre-taping this interview, but by by the time you see this, just go onto my website, TommyRosen.com. And so the first thing I would tell you to do is, in all seriousness, buy the book and read it as soon as you can. There's just a tremendous amount of information distilled down from 25 years of recovery, a lot of yoga principles, and a real look at diet, and of course your mission and where you belong in this world. So read the book. Tap into intherooms.com. My show is Tuesday night at 7 p.m. West Coast time, 10 p.m. East Coast time, every Tuesday night. That's the Recovery 2.0 Power Hour. And we have workshops and retreats happening all year long. And you just go to TommyRosen.com. You'll find a way to connect with us. And we want to be of support to anybody on this path who is courageous enough to look within and walk this life in the year 2014 without drugs and alcohol. That is a remarkable thing to do. Mm-hmm. So I want to be supportive to anyone who's decided to do that. Mm-hmm. And what else can I tell you? That's the story, Ashley.
Tommy, you're so amazing. And you know, every year Tommy co-hosts 2 different conferences, yoga and recovery, yoga meditation and recovery. One's on the East Coast, one's on the West Coast at Esalen and Kripalu. And I've been so blessed and honored to be a part of those. There's those huge conferences that are amazing. Tommy and his wife Kia lead incredible retreats around the globe. You still doing Thanksgiving in Costa Rica?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Every year, Thanksgiving in Costa Rica. And such an inspiring, and you're such a visionary, really. This work is incredible, of really taking this movement of recovery and addiction to the next level and integrating what I feel like is, you know, a really huge groundswell in the spiritual community and the scientific understanding of how powerful yoga and meditation practices are to really work from the inside out to address the core root psychological, emotional, spiritual issues that are then causing the addictive tendencies in the first place.
Yes. Well, thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Everybody, please go out and buy Recovery 2.0. Again, go to TommyRosen.com. You can go to Amazon, buy it today. We want to see it hit the #1 bestseller list on Amazon and New York Times. And such a pleasure. You're such an inspiration to me, truly, as a friend, as a brother, just in so much integrity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ashley, so much. You know it's mutual.
TommyRosen.com. We will see you soon. Again, take care. Thank you.